Hi guys, Timothy Roberts here. In this video, I'm going to talk about this cymbal I just finished for a commission, and we're going to dive into controlled cymbals that are also thin. All right, so I get requests for commissions quite often, and a lot of times guys are sending me either clips from drummers or say albums, recordings, where they really like the way the cymbal sounds in the recording and they're looking to get a similar sound made by me. So this customer reached out and asked about the iconic Bill Stewart sound. We know that sound, we love that sound. That sound is frustrating in a lot of ways because we don't really know what we're asking for when we ask for the Bill Stewart sound most of the time. I know at least I didn't know what I was asking for when I first purchased the cymbal that he helped design with my good friend Paul Francis. I didn't know what I was asking for, and I was like, I love the way Bill's cymbals sound recorded, so I'm gonna get one of these cymbals. And long story short, I got that cymbal and it did not work for me. It was way too aggressive and harsh and kind of piercing to my ear, and it did not work with the music I was playing because I wasn't doing a lot of electric basses, electric guitars, you know, bigger venues. I wasn't doing that kind of stuff. I was playing like little cafe gigs where I was like basically tapping on the cymbals. You know, people are eating dinner or whatever and you're sitting there playing jazz. And so I took that cymbal out on a gig, and it was just, the sax player immediately was like, stop playing that cymbal. So the Bill Stewart cymbal sound is really close. It's near and dear to my heart. And it's something that I've kind of dove into, and I created what I call the Labyrinth series. And the Labyrinth series is not meant to be a super accurate recreation of the Bill Stewart sound. It's my take on the sonic characteristics that make up a cymbal that Bill would use or countless other drummers would use. And that characteristic is complex, slightly trashy, definitely dry, and it gives you just this nice woody stick click attack that's really beautiful and inspiring to play. So this cymbal is a 22-inch Labyrinth series, and the customer reached out to me, and they actually linked a video of a previous Labyrinth ride that I had made, one of the first ones I made. It's actually like the first video ever of the Labyrinth series. And I had made these two cymbals. They both had hand-formed bells. They were both crazy thin. I'm talking like 2150 grams, maybe 2200 grams for a 22. And I had hammered them into a tall shape, given them really heavy topography. And those two cymbals turned out really, really nice. But the customer is, this guy is a drummer in New York City, and he needs something that had a little bit more body and presence. He didn't want something so splashy, which that's kind of the characteristic you get with cymbals that are too thin in general, is you get this kind of splashiness and this activation of the sustain and the body of the cymbal at very low volume. So if you're ever needing to dig in, you know, those cymbals will not be good for you unless you tape them up, unless you clamp the wing nut down, unless you do all that kind of stuff. You're not going to get stick definition out of those things in live environments where you need that stick definition to translate. So he sent this video. He said, can you make a cymbal like this, but we're going to go for a couple hundred grams heavier. And I'm just looking for something that's just controlled, but it still really has that complexity and that growl and that grittiness that you would get from a Bill Stewart cymbal. So I landed with this guy. It is a 22-inch Labyrinth. It weighs 2,405 grams. So, I mean, the specs of this cymbal is like right up my alley. Some of my favorite cymbals are all between like 2,340 grams and 2,450 grams. That's like my sweet spot. But I play quieter music. So there are guys that I know that need 2,600 grams for a 22. And it's just the music I play and the music I gravitate towards, and the fact that I'm a cymbalsmith. I'm, you know, alone in my shop, or me and my apprentice are in the shop all day, every day, and I'm just playing cymbals in my shop typically if I'm not out on a gig, which is rarer these days than I would like. But so I'm looking for cymbals that sound nice to me sitting behind them, and I'm always thinking about how would this translate live. So this cymbal in particular, just went through an update very, very recently. And the update was to actually dry the thing up a little bit more. So just to run through the general specs, we have ourselves a hand-formed bell, and it's low, it's a little bit flat on top, it's pretty wide. And these hand-formed bells, I'm telling you, they rule. The reason they rule is because if you're going for a dry, contained sound, then the process of hammering the center of the alloy hundreds of times to build the bell is a process that is going to imbue the cymbal with a sense of dryness that it just would not have if the bell was pressed. Now you can get around this by having a pressed bell that's got the right diameter, but it's just smaller, and then you hammer the diameter bigger. That's another way to get kind of the same effect. But I just find that when you have a totally flat piece of bronze and you build that bell up from scratch, you're giving that cymbal much more control than it would necessarily have. And that's kind of like, that's like a baseline, more control, more dryness. And then from there you can do other things that either increase that dryness or lend it towards being a little bit more open and airy. And I just find that hand-formed bells are a little bit more complex. When I say a little bit more, I mean a lot more complex, at least the way I do it. And so this cymbal has that hand-formed bell, and it has a somewhat tall profile. One of these days I'm going to figure out how to get this camera to focus on a profile. Somewhat tall profile, which is, you know, characteristic of the Bill Stewart sound or the complex cymbal sound. These tall profiles give you this kind of dragon's breathy ka kind of sound that lives in the bass line undercurrents of the cymbal, and it gives it this kind of like angry, slightly like, you know, aggressive character to the sound, which can be wonderful in jazz context. I just, you know, I love, you know, subtle uses of that character. I really can't stand when a cymbal's super umbrella, because you kind of cross this threshold when it's super, super tall, and you lose a lot of that breathy stuff, and it just becomes kind of angry without any vibe. You know, you can go too angry with an umbrella-shaped cymbal. So I'm dealing with these like very minute, little subtle changes in how tall or how low a cymbal is to draw out the exact characteristics that I want. So this is not a super tall cymbal. I would call this like a medium tall. Definitely not in the realm of umbrella-shaped tall, crazy tall. It's medium tall, and so it's giving me just enough dragon's breath and ka to make it super interesting, but it's not going too far in that direction. And then on the underside, just as a little homage to my friend Paul, there's a slight little bit of unlathed crust that I leave at the edge, and that is a really cool way of kind of giving, you know, the oxide crust is a good way of drying up the sound, and so you leave a little bit of crust at the edge, and it's a nice way to kind of keep the crash short and not sustaining for ages. So when I got to the end of this process, the customer liked the sound, but they were like, you know what, can you just do one more thing just to take it the final step towards exactly what I'm hearing in my head? And that was some really deep, heavy overhammering. And that's where we're really getting the goodness in this cymbal. So you can kind of see, especially in this section of the cymbal, there are, in the light, you could see there are some really deep hammer pockets. Those deep hammer pockets are really drying up the spread, and they're adding complexity. And so what we're left with is a cymbal that is thin. It's 2,405 grams. It's medium thin, kind of in that, right in that transition point. So we've got ourselves a jazz ride, but you're going to be amazed when you hear it in detail just how controlled it is. It does not run away from you. And this isn't even with a stand that has the wing nut clamped down super hard or anything like that. It's just wide open. So you're able to do other things, like if you want it even more dry for a particular, like say you're in a room with tons of brick and it's just super ringing and loud, you want something just bone dry, you could put a strip of tape and clamp the wing nut down and you've got that. But without any of it, you have this cymbal that you can play at the lightest touch, or you can really dig in and it'll go with you regardless of the musical situation you find yourself in. So let's dive into the sound of this cymbal now. right, so to contrast what you just heard, I have a 22-inch labyrinth that is 2,345 grams, so about 60 grams difference, which is not a lot at all. This one has a little bit of a heavier patina, but this is a good example of a much more airy version. So what you just heard was very dry, very articulate, and had much more stick clarity and like a woodiness to that stick definition. This guy is gonna have more air and more stuff going on underneath the stick. So it's a little bit more subtle and nuanced sounding. It's gonna open up at much lower volumes. So it's a different vibe, but it's within the same family of cymbal sounds. All right, so that's how it sounds. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. I do these kinds of commissions all the time, and there is a form on my website where you can order a cymbal commission, and I talk with every person that orders a commission. We email back and forth. I ask questions about your particular style of playing. It's all fine and well for someone to come to me and say, hey, make me something like the Nefertiti ride that Tony uses. But I would really love to know, well, how are you going to use it? And what kind of sticks do you play? And how do you play? What musical environments do you find yourself in? Because I can take, just the Tony Williams Nefertiti spec cymbal, and I can just make you one, which is fine. But I could also have that in mind as a general profile for the cymbal, and then I can also add in characteristics that's gonna cater it to you, your style, your playing. Are you a guy that just plays for fun in your drum room? Are you a gigging drummer? Or are you a guy that's in the studio a lot? Or do you play in big venues in front of tons of people? All of those things is gonna dictate how I approach any particular cymbal commission project. So you can go there, you can find it on reveriedrums.com. There are, you can basically choose the size and then the specs. There's like 5 different series that I offer. They all have a little mini description of what sound characteristic you're going to be getting with that series. And then there's the full-on custom tailored option, which is for very particular sounds. Like if you've got this old K in mind, or this Spizzichino in mind, or this record in mind where you're like, I just want to get as close as we can possibly get to that sound, you can go with the custom tailored option. But any option that you choose, I'm in touch, and we actually dial in the exact specs of that cymbal commission at that time. So if you're interested in that, head over to the website. Otherwise, drop a comment below on this video. Subscribe, hit the bell if you like this content and want to see more. Until next time, my name is Timothy Roberts. Thanks for watching.